Hello, and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are two pharmacists that believe in health and wellness and not just dispensing drugs to treat long-term disease. And we are super excited, speaking of that, to have Dr. Anju Mathur on our podcast today, and she is going to be talking about hormone balancing and functional medicine. And if you follow Janet and I, you know that we own a compounding pharmacy in Moses Lake, and 95% of what we do is hormone balancing. And I think hormone balancing is and was functional medicine before functional medicine was a term, because hormone balancing, if your hormones are balanced properly, it can prevent so much disease. So, Dr. Mathur, welcome to our show.
Well, thank you so much for having me here on your show.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about how you got to be a functional medicine doctor. I'm assuming that you just didn't start that way.
No, I did not actually. I was a mainstream doctor. I was a family practitioner, just seeing patients, the families, the husband, the wife, and the children. And then I got myself into a situation. It was a personal experience that I was only like 40, probably 42 or something. And I just stopped sleeping. I couldn't sleep. And it just happened over and over and over for months. And I was like, what is this? And then as a result of not sleeping, I just had no energy during the day.
Right.
And so, yeah, I had to like lay down on the couch. It was embarrassing. I had to lay down on the couch every couple of hours to even get up and do my house chores. It was so bad. And so I started researching, trying to find out what is the underlying cause. And since you guys are pharmacists, you know very well, practically all of us have the similar story of our own to share. And this was exactly how it unfolded. So lo and behold, obviously I'm a doctor, so I did my own testing, but I also saw regular mainstream doctors, and they all told me that your tests are all fine. So you're actually
Yeah.
fine, and there is nothing wrong with you. I'm like, okay, if nothing is wrong with me, then why do I feel so crappy? So and why can't I sleep? So yeah, so I got started researching like what are the solutions, and I got invited to one of the bioidentical hormone replacement seminars in Beverly Hills by Dr. Terry Hertog, and I'm sure you are familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And my guess is I'm jumping way ahead here and maybe being too presumptuous, but my guess it was low progesterone, right?
it was low progesterone. That's exactly right.
Right. It's that simple, right?
Yeah,
But
it's
yet,
so simple.
right? I know. So I didn't want to steal your thunder, but we hear those stories all the time, and it's just and I'm sure in your practice you hear them all the time, how people went to doctor after doctor about their sleep problems or their anxiety problems, and it's just simple progesterone.
So true. I mean, what women don't understand, and they kind of get wrapped up in the words like menopause, perimenopause. Am I in premenopause? Am I in perimenopause? What menopause am I in? But I think what they need to understand, and I think it'll help them so much to understand that as we are getting older in our early 30s, mid 30s, and late 30s, and of course early 40s, the first hormone to decline is progesterone. And
Yep.
it's very simple. People get irritable. I was, I was irritable. You get anxiety. I mean, I didn't have so much anxiety, but it was more irritability and things like that, and not being able to sleep. So it's really simple. You don't need anti-anxiety pills, or sleeping pills.
Yep.
You don't need, Ambien to sleep. Literally, you don't. And
We we
so, yeah, this is,
we just got done with a Instagram live, which we do once a week, and our subject was sleep, and we were talking the same thing. And there was a guy on there. He's been on that trazodone for 20 years,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, it's that's not the answer. Drugs are not the answer to treat your sleep problem, and we are created to sleep well if everything is in balance.
Exactly. Now you're talking about the trazodone. Like I had a guy. Now, the hormones are not just for women, as we all know. Men go through andropause because they are declining hormones, except that it's not as dramatic
Right.
as in women.
Right.
We our hormones kind of fall off the cliff very fast, but for men it's not so dramatic.
And
And
so
so
usually,
it just reminded when you said trazodone. I was just going to say that my one of my patients was 60 some 5 years old, and he was on trazodone, and he was like, I'm like, no, you need your hormones. So
right,
I started doing his hormones, and he was fine, and he got off the trazodone. It was just it's mind blowing how easy it is.
right. Janet, you had a comment?
Well, I do, because kind of piggyback on your story of when you went to providers. I think sometimes we feel as women that we're kind of being written off, like just
Yeah.
live with it, deal with it. And I've had the experience too, only mine wasn't the progesterone. It was actually, I had a thyroid issue after our second child. And many times, especially when we are in the healthcare industry, we're kind of shocked when we're treated that way. So I'm assuming that was the pivotal point for you're like, I can't stay in this sick model. I have to do something different. Can you kind of go into that for us?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. So for many months, as I was looking through, in fact, the way I got introduced was uh, I just thought logically. In medical school, they
Yeah.
don't really teach you much about
Right.
nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to touch upon that a little bit because it is really ties up very well with overall holistic wellness. And so the first thing I thought logically, maybe I'm eating something wrong. Maybe I should figure out what is the right right diet nutrition for me. Did I lose you guys? No, there you are. Okay.
No,
No, you're here.
yeah,
Uh,
we're back.
Okay. So anyway, so yeah, so that was the first area I checked into to see how I could uplift the health of the body. And luckily for the bioidentical hormones, I just got really lucky because suddenly I decided, okay, I'm going to do anti-aging. I'm going to get into this field of anti-aging after I start because I wanted to treat myself. So I wanted to use whatever modalities that were available to help myself. So the first thing I did was nutrition. And then after that, with nutrition, if you just do nutrition, you can improve the status of your health, but it's not like all the way up.
Right.
Right.
It's a little bit higher than that. That there is like kind of plateau. And just right about the time when I was in the plateau, I got this invitation to go to this conference on bioidentical hormone. I lucked out, and I saw there it was miraculous to see so many doctors in one room that are super excited about what they're doing,
Right.
and so that was like very motivational for me. And I said, okay, and I had never heard of that before. The bioidentical hormone was a brand new word for me, and so I got into it, and I saw them excited, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And yeah, little by little, I checked my hormones, and you're right, Janet, I had thyroid problem as well. So I treated myself with thyroid, and there's a whole story on this,
Sure.
but there was very interesting, for doctors like me, who are like mainstream doctors, didn't know anything much about. I mean, we know the endocrine system, but we weren't very familiar with that you could actually replace the hormones exogenously and that they were available. So was very new and exciting.
Yeah, you talk about going to a conference and seeing people excited, seeing doctors excited. Janet had the same way. We go to a hormone conference at least once a year, and that's what's really nice about it is we're around a bunch of people that are doctors, pharmacists, nurses that are excited about getting people healthy again.
Mm.
And when we were in the sick care model, we called it the sick care model, years ago. We never went to a conference. All that was where they were gripe sessions about the latest blood pressure drug or the latest diabetes drug, and then doctors and pharmacists complaining about insurance companies, and that
Yeah,
just gets really old.
yeah,
We went into pharmacy and medicine to take care of people and help them get better. And in the traditional system, or at least the traditional system that we think of it now, that's not what's working. It's a sick care system, and you can't stay in it and actually help people get healthy. You just can't.
No, actually, this happened in my life when I was towards the end of my wits. Like, I realized that I wasn't really helping people using drugs and medications. You know, even people who with diabetes or blood pressure, arthritis, you know, they come in and you get prescribed your medication, and then they come back and they get the refills, and but they never look like they're really recovered from anything, or they're happy or excited, or their motivation is back, or nothing like that. And so, I was at the point where I was about to give up on my medical career. Believe it or not, I was like, at that point, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe I should go into real estate or do something
Same
different.
thing.
Yeah, that's what we were gonna do. We were gonna sell real estate.
Yeah, we're like, no, we can't do this anymore. Yeah.
Literally, I was at that verge of, okay, I'm
Yeah.
so close to getting out of here. And I
Yep.
just feel like I'm committing sins almost every day because I'm doing
Right.
something that is not really helping. I'm pretending that I know something when I don't. And so that was that you know, spark that I was like, okay, I got to do something helpful. And at this point, after doing functional medicine and bioidentical hormone replacement for almost what is it, almost 20 years now.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm like, at this stage, I'm so fulfilled. I feel like I'm living my life. I'm useful to others, that I'm not really just there, if, you know, in there for money. You know, a lot of times the doctors get a bad rap about just the money, you know, but
Well,
when you,
I don't even think you're making money in the system anymore. You're being told to check the box. I mean,
probably,
right? Like
probably,
we've been out of it for so long, but your colleagues are checking boxes now. It's like, AI is almost on the verge of taking their job because they don't, it's XYZ, right?
it's so true.
And speaking of money, and Jen and I have said this over and over again, there is no amount of money
Mm,
that we would ever accept to go back to that sick care
mm-mm.
model.
Oh my
There's no
gosh.
way. I would not do it and there is not a number big enough,
Yeah.
because it was not fulfilling at all. And we absolutely love what we do now because our patients, we hear every day, we save somebody's life, we save somebody's marriage. That is so fulfilling. It is priceless.
So true, so true. And I hear, every time I hear a success story, a patient is raving about how well they are feeling. I just tell them, you made my day today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell us about a success story.
Oh, for sure. Like this guy, like I was telling you, this guy comes in and he's like 68. I mean, I have many, many stories to tell you, but just Trazodone's story was like so striking to me. I mean, this is functional medicine. So now he comes in, he's on Trazodone and he's on I don't know, Prozac or something, like a depression antidepressant or something. And he was doing very badly, and he wasn't sleeping. And he had this depression in spite of the Prozac. He was depressed. So I said, okay, great, let's do functional medicine. So we started treating him. And I think what I did was literally nothing but give him zinc. Believe it or not, I gave him
Wow.
Yeah.
zinc
I mean,
for about
I do believe it.
Yep.
2 months. That's it. And after that, he comes back happy, with a little step in, very excited. And I'm like, what's happening? He says, I don't have any depression. And then while he was getting on the zinc, because his copper was too high and zinc was too low, and that causes mental manifestations like depression. So I said, okay, let's try this first. Because before he was like, oh, I don't want to take hormones. I'm like, okay, great, no problem. We'll do something else. And we just started with zinc. And then lo and behold, after he was doing well and depression and everything was fine, and he says, oh, now I'm ready for hormones.
Yeah, right. He
Right.
wants to get even well because he knows now he trusts you and he wants to get even better. Yeah, and then he realizes too that what he was doing in the other system didn't work for years, and it never was going to make him better. So I mean, kudos to you for that. And speaking of that, we have somebody that's commented, Terry Ann Griffith Towner, you three are greatly needed. Thank you so much, Terry, for that comment. She also has another one. My doctor will retire one day. I'm scared of the search I'll have to go through to stay alive. I am hypopituitary and replace all my hormones just to live. Well, thank you for that comment, Terry. Always feel free to reach out to us because Janet and I work with doctors all over the nation, and we can refer you to doctors like Dr. Mathur. And there's still a lot of great doctors out there, and there's more and more that are leaving the traditional system and doing this functional medicine and hormone balancing because they realize how fulfilling it is and how they help patients.
Yeah, I really hope that this will become the mainstream in probably next couple of decades. I think it should become a mainstream.
I do too. And Jen and I kind of make a joke of this, and we talk about it, and I say this before I even mention it, but MAHA should not be political, even though it's been made political. But you've been doing it for 20 years. We've been doing it for 25 plus years. We were MAHA before MAHA was cool.
That's
And
right.
and now it's getting to be mainstream. So it's great that it's in the conversation now.
That's so true. I just love it. I can't wait for this to all unfold and change the whole, industry, the whole health industry, the medical industry needs to change, completely overhaul it. People are getting sick also because of the environment.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
there's so much autoimmune disease that I see every day. I'm actually an autoimmune specialist as well. So I see a very, very many spectrum of autoimmunes, from multiple sclerosis to Crohn's disease to ulcerative colitis to lupus. And the underlying factor that I feel is there is because of the pollution. There is the food is laden with chemicals that start this chain reaction in the body. And then there is, of course, pollution in the air and the chemicals that we breathe every single day.
For sure. And then, there's certain things that it's difficult to get around. I mean, the pollution in the air, depending on where you live, is harder to get away from.
Yeah.
But what Jen and I talk about, and I would love your comment on this, is that we can't get away from all the toxins, whether it be in our foods, the glyphosates or whatever. It's important to have a healthy immune system so we can detox from those things. So if we try to eat really good food and sleep well, have good nutrition and move, exercise, we can have a healthy immune system to help us when we do get exposed to those toxins, then we can at least try to detox from them. What's your comments about that?
No, totally. I agree. I mean, look, and in the current circumstance, what are you going to do? You're not going to run away from the toxins because you can't. They're
Right.
everywhere. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. And even to get rid of them, even on a government level, I think it'll take a lot. It'll take a lot of innovation, a lot of, new processes that have to be developed, more scientific research to get rid of the toxins. But on an individual level, on a personal level, I think from my mind, is like you need to be continuously detoxing one way or another. You got to be continuously, regularly detoxing, whether it's a liver detox or a colon detox or whatever detox you are familiar with and you like, even if you do coffee enemas, whatever that helps you detox the body. That's I think the way to go. Like there isn't any way to be healthy without detoxing.
So what are some of your ways you recommend that people detox?
Sorry?
What are some of the ways that you recommend people detox?
Yes. So I think the biggest way or the easiest way, so I found, okay, back in the day when I started doing functional medicine, I just learned things from various different places and I kind of put it together in my own universe and my own protocols that I saw they worked. So there was a liver cleanse, the routine liver cleanse where you do more like with the liver detox type of thing. But with so many medical foods coming out, which are liver detox, so I use those. I have my own personal detox formulas now that you can take. These are supplements that you can take, and then there's drinks, there's shakes that you can do. But I think that liver detox is the most important and the key detox in keeping yourself healthy. Even doing coffee enema, even if you don't do anything, but if you do a coffee enema on a regular basis, whether it's once a week or twice a week, it will be stimulating your liver to detox.
So our experience with detox with liver is that sometimes people probably should do it on a weekend or start just because of the flu-like symptoms,
Yeah.
right? Can you kind of talk to that a little bit? Because, I do feel like there's so much that's getting flushed out that sometimes people just,
You feel sick.
yeah.
So, yes, so 20 years ago when I did the liver detox, so remember, I'm a medical doctor. So there's nothing like detox thing that is taught to you in the medical school.
Right.
There's nothing like that. So when my nutritionist that I was using at the time, she told me, okay, Anju, you need to do a liver cleanse. I'm like, oh, liver cleanse. Okay, what is that? And then she told me, okay, do this, drink this, drink that, do this. I'm like, okay. And then luckily I did it on the weekend. So the day after the detox was done and I had lots of things happen, I was so sick,
Yep.
but in a sick in a good way.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Not sick like you're really falling sick and then you have to be like sick for next 5 days.
Yeah.
But it's more like you are coming out of the sickness, but you're kind of healing. You're coming back out of it. And I remember that day very distinctly because I was in my rocker, my chair, and I was in my chair all day sleeping. And then when I wake up, I would go to the kitchen, and I would make some food, eat some food, and go back and go right back to
Yeah.
sleep. And I
Yep.
did that for the 24 hours.
Yep.
And then the next day when I woke up, I was like a brand new person. I'm like, wow, what happened here? And I'll tell you one little anecdote. And it's so funny because when I did that, I almost felt like I can't hide this from the patients anymore
Mm-hmm.
because I was still practicing mainstream at that time because I was trying to find the
Oh,
answers,
Yeah.
yeah, on my own, and I was trying to figure out what to do and this, that. But when the gallstones came out, in the poop, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't now say that I didn't see something that I actually saw. And then the next day, when I felt so much better, I'm like, okay, I can't ignore this, or I can't keep it under the wraps. I can't be afraid of talking about it. And the next day, when I came into my practice and I told one of my patients that I did this cleanse and I feel so much better. And he said, hey, tell us about that. They were like, tell
right.
us what do we do? What do we? It was so cute. I just loved it. I'm like, okay. So little by little, I came out of the mainstream and I did what I'm doing now.
That's awesome to hear. So I want to hear about your patient story, if you don't mind continuing to share it. What happened to the 68-year-old that went off trazodone, started the zinc, and then he started hormones? What happened to him after he started hormones?
Oh, he was completely happy. It was fantastic. He's like, give him testosterone, all the hormones, everything, and balance his body up. And his wife was the one that brought him in.
Of
And
course, right?
yeah, it's funny. It could go either way. It could also be the husband bringing the wife in, but this one was the wife bringing in. But I'll tell you another story, which is
Please.
very striking. It's very striking because this lady, she is actually the owner of one of the biggest organic restaurants in LA. And when she met me, she was 81 years old. And then after I got her history and everything, and I said, okay, great, we will take you on and we will help you. And she says, doctor, I have to tell you one other thing. I said, what? And she says, well, I want to wear my 2-inch heels again.
Oh,
Good
And
for
that
her.
was, yeah, that was her. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I kind of ignored it. But then 4 years, fast forward 4 years, and then one of her main problem was that she didn't want to get dementia and Alzheimer's.
mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
she was a psychotherapist, and she said she was forgetting her patients' histories and all these different things. And she wanted to take back the patient load again, like she was doing before, like 35 patients a week. And so every time I would say she was doing great. She got energy. She was running around doing her thing, and then I said, okay, well let's do a success video. Lucille, her name is Lucille, and I said, Lucille, let's do a success video. She said, doctor, I'm not ready. Just give me a little bit more time. I need my memory to improve. And I said, okay, no problem. So fast forward 4 years later, she says, doctor, I'm ready for this success video that you were talking about. And now she's 86 years old. And she made this video where she said, yeah, I feel amazing. She said she was thinking she was going to die at the age of 85.
Yeah.
And now
Mm.
that she's 86, she said, okay, now she has plans to live until 92. So, so she has made her whole plans of what she's going to do with her life for next 80 years or 70 years. And then we'll regroup at 92. And I said,
I love
oh,
it. And those stories are not that uncommon in the space that you and I
Mm-mm.
are in.
yep.
And because eventually, let's face it, eventually Father Time is going to get us, eventually. And we don't know when that day will be. But Jan and I say often, it's like we want to live optimally until the day we die. And in the traditional sick care system, like we used to, all of us used to be in, oh, as you age, this is just normal. You're going to be on more medications. You're going to have less sex. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to gain weight. You're going to get diabetes. You're going to get high blood pressure. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's a lie. That's a complete lie. We can keep optimizing our health. In fact, Janet and I are in our mid 50s, and we are doing better than we ever had in our entire lives. And we have no plans of ever stopping that.
Yep.
There's no reason we really should.
That's exactly right. And you want to hear the last bit of that story?
Yep.
Oh, sure. It gets better. I love it. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's totally fine. It gets better because I did the video on her myself because I was very curious to see what she was going to say. So she finished. So I finished the video. I said, okay, it's done. And then after the video, she said, Doctor, I forgot to say, I am wearing my 2-inch heels again.
Oh, yay. I love it.
That's really cool.
I love it. Just to insert, and I've talked about this lady, we have a patient, 83 going on 84. She teaches women 5 classes a day. And most of it is aerobics, but she also she coaches them on nutrition and lifestyle. But she could be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She is just gorgeous. She has a beautiful body. She's thriving and she's amazing. And she just embraces how her lifestyle keeps her young and her memory. And I love seeing that. And I have another client who stopped in, and she's in her 90s, and she just went on a trip to Europe with her daughter. She met them in New York. She lives in Washington State. She traveled all the way across the country all by herself into New York, and she would have went to England by herself. So that's where I want to be at these ages. I just want to be able to thrive and enjoy what's around me and not just be existing in a poor, miserable way. Because I feel bad for even our 30 and 40-year-olds that are just existing.
100%. Like just today, I saw a 17-year-old. And he's so fatigued, he can't get out of bed, and he's like napping during the day, 17-year-old, and just exhausted. I'm like, wow, okay. So that's autoimmune.
Yeah. And I mean, as a young man being 17, you should be like thriving.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we see that, and you see this too. I don't know if you've checked his testosterone level yet, but we have an epidemic of low testosterone in young men now. It's epidemic. And I think it's partly environment induced and their environment caused, sedentary lifestyle, eating crappy food, playing video games, sitting on the couch, being sedentary, drinking beer, drinking wine all the time, whatever that is, doesn't promote your body to be vital and doesn't promote your body to produce testosterone. That's a problem.
Totally. I think the young men who come with low testosterone, the first thing I do is liver detox.
Yeah.
Because their bodies are so toxic. And a lot of times, once the detox is done, even sometimes I have to do heavy metal detox. And then if I do the heavy metal detox, the testosterone levels go up. So you have to kind of you have to kind of do functional medicine, just look at different aspects that could be causing the problem. And not just band-aid it with something. So hormones are great. Like just today I was discussing, the hormones are great, but they're not the panacea. They're not the panacea. And you have to use every little bit of resource that you have to bring the body into balance, the homeostasis. This is what we want.
Yep. And Jan and I talked that over and over again. And our major business, our major income in our pharmacy is through hormone balancing. But we're honest with people. Look, this is a piece of the puzzle. You've still got to focus on your lifestyle, your diet, your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep. You still got to focus on those things.
Right.
And if there's certain things that you're doing that is poisoning your body, you've got to stop.
Or in your environment, we have an employee that had mold poisoning and nearly killed her. So there's environmental things that really need to be looked at and found to heal.
100%. Like I learned this lesson practically because I didn't know that. And so after I learned about bioidentical hormones, I was excited. I was going, okay, I'm going to do this bioidentical hormones. But just right after that, I got a patient walked in and he told me he was seeing another anti-aging physician. And he was on all the hormones, including testosterone and the growth hormone. And I said, wow, how long you been taking these? And he said, yeah, I've been taking it for a year or 2 years. And I said, wow. And then he said, yeah, I'm severely fatigued, exhausted. I can't get up because he was a marathon runner and he couldn't run marathons. And I said, wow, so there is something more to this, not just the hormones. So that's when I started, introducing the other modalities and other treatments that will help the rest of the body. Like you said earlier, talked about the immune system. And I think that was very key because immune system, I think, is a big system that goes down with aging. So anything that you can do to improve your immune system, which is what I did for him. And he's back. He was back into marathon. He was inviting me, doctor, come with me. We'll run the marathon.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, I love you sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I appreciate so much what you do. I'm going to stream your website here, and you can tell us a little bit more about how people can get a hold of you if they have any questions.
For sure. Oh, you have my website on. I love it.
Yeah, there it is. So
Yeah.
your website is? Tell us what your website is.
I think it's angellongevity.com.
Correct.
So
Okay.
that's the website, and it does talk about all different types of treatments that we do and what kind of conditions that we treat. But practically at this point in my life and my career, I feel like it doesn't matter what your label is of your disease by the mainstream, but it's mainly what are the imbalances in the body with various different systems that need to be brought into balance so that you can feel like yourself again. And
That's right. One thing I think you probably heard this before, and of course this being in family practice before that. Even though family practice, when you were trained medically, you were trained to do a little bit of everything. But what family practice doctors and most primary care doctors have been relegated to is basically their referral sources to specialists. And so that's what I love about functional medicine is the body is not just about your bones or just about your endocrine system or just about your brain health. It's a whole piece. And functional medicine gets to that whole piece. That's what I love about it.
that's exactly right, and very well said. And I give an analogy of a car. So if you have a car, the body is like a machine. It's a biological machine. And it's like a car. Car has all different systems, the exhaust fan and the transmission and the engine and this and that. Same thing, we have a body with various different systems, your gastrointestinal system, your immune system, your endocrine system, circulatory, and on and on. So there's a lot of different systems, and we want to bring them into balance. The moment you bring them into balance, you are like, bingo, you feel like yourself, like you are yourself, and there is no dis-ease.
Exactly.
I love that because our culture is embracing, I have this illness, and functional medicine has changed that for many people. To you are not that. Your body is a whole organism that can heal itself if it has the right inputs or, getting rid of the bad things that are around it. So it's exciting to me because I want to be in healing, not band-aiding and illness. I want to be in healing. So it's encouraging to hear your stories about how you've taken somebody with just what the root cause was and help illuminate or help fix that. And that human is thriving again. They are existing in a state of happiness and wellness. And that's why we went into medicine, right? That's why we said we wanted to do this.
That's exactly right. And that's why we wanted to get out of it from the mainstream, because we realized we weren't helping as we thought we were going to help people improve their health.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Mathur, we're wrapping this podcast up. As we wrap this podcast up, I want you to tell us what you have a passion for.
Oh, my passion, like I said, my passion is to bring the person in that condition. My passion is to bring the people into a state of health where they can accomplish their passions of life.
I love it. I love it. And our goal of this podcast is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. So you've helped us realize our goal today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yes. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Monday to our regularly scheduled podcast, 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.